Have you ever wondered why a woman's eyes sometimes linger on you just a fraction longer than necessary then? As if caught, she quickly looks away and her cheeks bloom with a blush. You replay that moment in your mind later, almost obsessively. Was it interest? Was it embarrassment? Or was it a silent test of your awareness, your confidence, your ability to stay centered when her emotions are exposed in microbursts? Most men see it as a small detail, almost meaningless. But in reality, that lingering look followed by a blush is a crack in her armor, an unconscious giveaway that her attraction is present but fragile, hidden beneath layers of strategy, fear, or playfulness. And whether you recognize it or mishandle it decides if you become unforgettable or invisible. Imagine this: you're at a cafe, casually speaking with friends. She walks past, her hand brushing the edge of the table, her eyes grazing yours for just a second too long. You notice the warmth rising in her face, the way she adjusts her hair as if shielding herself from being too exposed. That's not random. That's her biology revealing what her words would never admit so soon. The blush is involuntary, a flood of blood vessels responding to adrenaline, desire, and sudden vulnerability. But here's the trap if you pounce on it, if you smirk arrogantly, if you break the moment with clumsy humor, you destroy it. She retreats. The curtain closes. Because what she really wants is not your commentary on her reaction, it's your steadiness in the face of it. This is where so many men fail. They see her blush and immediately interpret it as permission, a green light to press harder. They lean in, joke about it, or point it out with a teasing remark. But by doing that, they rob the moment of its mystery. Attraction dies not because she wasn't interested, but because you revealed your need to validate yourself through her slip of vulnerability. You showed that you couldn't hold the tension, and tension in the dance of desire is everything. You must understand, a woman's blush is both a signal and a shield. It signals interest, yes, but it also shields her, giving her the excuse to retreat if she feels overwhelmed. She can always claim embarrassment or dismiss it as nothing. That duality is what makes it so powerful. And that's why your role as a man isn't to interrogate it, but to embody calmness in the face of it. You let the moment breathe. You let her linger in her own uncertainty while you stay rooted, grounded, composed. Because in her eyes, your steadiness in that split second tells her something deeper than any words could. You're not desperate for her approval. You're not rattled by her signals. You're not flustered by female beauty. You're a man who can withstand pressure. Think of it like this: when a woman blushes, she is unconsciously handing you leverage. She's revealing a crack in her composure. The way you respond determines whether you build attraction or kill it. The strongest move is not pursuit, it's patience. You hold your gaze just long enough to let her feel seen. Then you return calmly to what you were doing, as if her reaction didn't destabilize you. This flips the dynamic. Instead of her testing you, now she is wondering about you. Why didn't he react? Why didn't he take advantage of that moment? Does he not want me? That curiosity, that slight insecurity, pulls her toward you. You become the one who is hard to read. You become the one who doesn't blush. This is the heart of masculine power. In these subtle interactions, you don't chase signals. You let them accumulate. You don't reveal your hunger at the first crack of opportunity. You force the opportunity to deepen. And every time you resist the urge to break the silence with reassurance or validation, you magnify her investment. She begins to lean in. She begins to seek your eyes again, to bridge the gap she herself created. Suddenly, the game shifts. Instead of you trying to prove your worth, she's now trying to confirm hers in your presence. So here's your tactical clarity. When her eyes linger and her cheeks flush, do not laugh, do not comment, do not treat it like your victory. Treat it like her vulnerability. Stay composed. Give her just enough acknowledgement to let her know you noticed steady eye contact. A small, knowing smile, and then withdraw your attention first. Make her chase the warmth she felt in that moment. That is how you turn a fleeting blush into a lasting imprint in her mind. Because attraction is not built in grand gestures. It is built in these microscopic exchanges, where a woman reveals her interest in ways she can later deny. Your job is not to extract confessions. It is to hold steady long enough for her denials to collapse under the weight of her own curiosity. Have you ever misread a blush and ruined the moment? Have you ever ignored it and later realized she wanted you to notice? Which mistake do you see yourself making the most? Be honest in the comments. Picture this: you're sitting across from her, maybe at dinner, maybe during a casual conversation at work. She looks at you while you're talking. Her eyes soften, her lips part slightly, then she quickly looks down at her glass or her phone. That little rush of pink spreads across her cheeks, and she tries to cover it with a smile or a sudden change of subject. If you pay attention, you'll notice it's never random. It's her body betraying her emotions before her mind can reassert control. The deeper truth is that women live in a constant dance between concealment and revelation. They reveal in microbursts and conceal in strategies, and you, as a man, must learn not to destroy those delicate bursts by being over-eager. Why do her eyes linger before she blushes? Because that lingering is her risk. That's the moment she dares to let you in, if only for a second. The blush is her recoil, her retreat into safety after giving away too much. And here's the harsh truth: if you make her regret that risk, you kill not just the moment, but the possibility of future moments. If she feels judged, mocked, or exposed, she will armor herself, and once the armor is up, it rarely comes back down for you. Many men don't understand that attraction isn't loud in its beginning. It's subtle, it's fragile, it's hidden under layers of plausible deniability. A woman doesn't want to hand you her interest outright. She wants to see if you can perceive it without needing it shouted at you. That's what makes her linger. That's what makes her blush. It's a test of your perception, your restraint, your ability to handle desire without being consumed by it. If you fumble, if you immediately respond with validation, you've shown you can't handle the heat of silence, and silence is where her attraction grows. So what's the practical move when her eyes linger? First, do not flinch. Too many men panic in that silence. They look away too quickly, or they rush to fill the air with words. Don't. Hold her gaze calmly, even for just a heartbeat longer than comfortable. Let her feel seen, not analyzed. Then, instead of rewarding her blush with obvious pursuit, shift your focus back to what you were doing: your drink, your friends, the conversation at hand. That pivot, that calm disengagement, sends a powerful signal you're not controlled by her attention. You noticed it, but you don't need to devour it. Here's the psychology behind why this works when she lingers on you. She exposes herself to the possibility of rejection. The blush is her way of hiding that fear. If you overreact, if you tease her about it, or stare too hard, or suddenly escalate, you confirm her fear. She feels foolish for letting her guard slip. But if you remain calm, if you act as though her vulnerability is safe in your presence, she feels drawn closer. You become the man who didn't exploit her weakness. You become the man who makes her feel both exposed and secure at the same time. And that paradox is the seed of deep attraction. Think of the mistake most men make here. They lean into the blush like scavengers. They pounce with jokes like, Why are you blushing, or did I catch you staring? On the surface, it seems playful, but underneath, what they've done is destroy the sanctity of the moment. They turned her involuntary vulnerability into a spectacle. That doesn't build intimacy, it breeds shame, and shame kills attraction faster than anything else. Instead, the right move is silence paired with presence. A slight smile that says, "I see you," without words. A pause that lets her feel her own heartbeat against the tension. Then, your graceful withdrawal, which leaves her wondering why you didn't capitalize on it. That wondering is where the chase begins. That wondering is what makes her eyes find you again and again, searching for the stability you exude. In fact, the greatest power you have in these moments is not action, but restraint, because restraint creates contrast. Every other man is eager, loud, needy for her acknowledgement. You are the one who holds back, who lets her invest more, who refuses to be shaken by a blush. And when she realizes she can't easily move you, she's forced to deepen her signals. The lingering looks become longer, the blushing becomes harder to hide, and eventually her defenses break down, not because you pressed, but because you didn't. Here's your field-tested strategy when she lingers. Receive it calmly. When she blushes, honor it by not exposing it. When she retreats, let her. Do not chase, do not highlight, do not reward with over-attention. Instead, create the frame where she feels safe enough to linger again and again, until her curiosity becomes undeniable. Attraction doesn't need your words, it needs your presence. And the man who can hold that presence without breaking it becomes the man who doesn't need to chase, because she starts chasing him. Have you ever caught a woman staring, only to make a joke and watch her wall slam back up? Have you ever felt her blush, and then second-guessed if it was real? What do you usually do in that silence? Fill it, or hold it. Drop your stories below. There's a reason the blush unnerves men as much as it excites them, because when you see it, you suddenly feel the upper hand. You think, she just revealed something she didn't mean to. I caught her, and that sense of having caught her can intoxicate you. But here's the danger: intoxication makes you sloppy. You lean forward, you press harder, you try to confirm what you already suspect. And in doing so, you ruin the invisible thread she was weaving. Because her blush wasn't a confession for you to interrogate, it was an invitation for you to hold the tension longer. Most men don't realize that women use blushing as a shield just as much as a signal. When she blushes, she's telling herself, I can always play this off as embarrassment, as nothing. That's her plausible deniability. It lets her reveal without fully committing. And if you force her to commit too soon, you push her back into safety. She closes down, because you proved you couldn't carry the tension without needing her to spell it out. A man who needs clarity too soon is a man who gets discarded. You need to learn to sit inside the unknown, to let her attraction leak through her body while you stay composed, unshaken. Think of it like fishing the moment the fish bites. You don't yank the rod with all your strength. You let it pull, you give it slack, you guide it carefully. If you rip too soon, you lose it. That's what happens when you rush to expose her blush. You make her regret revealing it. So here's what it looks like in real life. You're at a dinner with mutual friends. Conversation is flowing. At some point, you catch her looking at you a little longer than necessary. You don't break the moment. You hold her eyes steadily, letting her feel the quiet intensity. She blushes, she looks down, she fiddles with her glass. What do? Most men would seize the moment, tease her in front of everyone, try to make it obvious. Don't. You simply let your mouth curve into the faintest smile. Then you turn back to your plate or to another part of the conversation as though nothing happened. That silence leaves her burning with curiosity. She's now thinking about you, replaying what just happened, wondering why you didn't pounce. That is how you plant yourself in her mind. Because the truth is, women remember men who don't need them to spell everything out. They remember the man who could hold a gaze without cracking, who didn't laugh nervously, who didn't rush to fill the silence. That man feels like a mystery, like he sees her yet remains untouchable, and mystery is oxygen to her attraction. But let's cut deeper. Why do you as a man struggle to hold this tension? Because you're afraid. Afraid that if you don't react, you'll miss the chance. Afraid that if you don't confirm her interest, she'll slip away. That fear makes you break the silence. That fear makes you expose the moment instead of letting it unfold. And beneath that fear is the core truth you're still operating from scarcity. You're still acting as though a woman's blush is rare treasure you can't afford to mishandle. But the man who wins isn't the man who clutches at signals. He's the man who can watch a signal, let it pass, and still remain centered in himself, because he knows there will be more. He knows women cannot resist deepening their interest in a man who isn't thrown off balance. This is why restraint is more powerful than pursuit. Every man can pursue. Every man can crack a joke to relieve the tension. But few can sit there, calm, letting her heartbeat race while his remains steady. That's what separates boys from men. Because boys need confirmation. Men create it without asking. So what's your move the next time you notice her eyes linger and her cheeks color? Do nothing. But not the weak kind of nothing where you shrink or pretend you didn't see it. No, you do the strong nothing. The kind where your gaze acknowledges her fully. Your body remains relaxed. Your mouth curves slightly as though you know. And then you return to yourself. That's not avoidance. That's dominance of the moment. You've shown her that her blush didn't unravel you, and you've left her to sit with the effect you have on her. Over time, this pattern breaks women down, because every woman wants to feel safe revealing herself, but also wants to be drawn deeper into curiosity. If you give her both, she won't forget you. She'll chase your eyes in every room just to feel that same shiver again. Have you ever been too eager and scared her off by pushing the moment? Have you ever regretted not holding your composure when her attraction was obvious? What would you do differently if you could relive one of those moments? Drop your truth in the comments. There comes a moment when you begin to realize just how much power lies not in what you say, but in what you don't. Her eyes linger, her lips part. The blush rises and you feel that instinct to break the silence with words, to capitalize on the signal. But the moment you speak too soon, you collapse the tension she works so hard to hide. You take the invisible thread between you and snap it for your own comfort. And in that instant, you reveal yourself as another man who couldn't handle her quiet storm. You need to understand something most men never learn. Women are masters of subtlety. Their attraction rarely arrives in direct statements. It bleeds out through the cracks of their body language, in the accidental brush of a hand, in the lingering second of eye contact, in the heat flushing their skin. But each signal comes wrapped in plausible deniability. She can always pull back, always pretend it meant nothing. That's why your strength as a man is measured by how well you can hold that ambiguity without demanding clarity. Think about the last time you saw her cheeks turn red. You probably felt a surge of adrenaline yourself. Your heart sped up, your chest tightened. You felt a little taller. That's natural. But here's the tactical truth. What you do with that surge decides everything. If you rush in, you expose your hunger. If you laugh at her or make it a joke, you embarrass her. If you ignore it entirely, you miss the chance. The sweet spot lies in the balance acknowledge without exposing, notice without needing, enjoy without exploiting. Picture this scenario. You're talking to her at work, in the middle of a group conversation. You say something with confidence, and her eyes don't leave you. She's lingering. Then, as you turn toward her, you catch the redness blooming across her face. She drops her gaze, shuffles her papers, maybe even forces a laugh to mask it. What do? The weak man cracks a joke about it. You're blushing. What's that about? The needy man leans in, desperate to confirm, are you looking at me like that? Both destroy the energy. The strong man, however, does less. He pauses, lets the silence stretch half a second longer, lets his eyes hold hers firmly but not aggressively. Then, almost casually, he returns to his conversation with the group, not seeking validation, not needing to explain. That single moment plants a seed in her mind. Why didn't he press? Why didn't he chase? What does that mean about him? Here's why this works. Psychologically, attraction thrives in tension. Tension is the gap between what is felt and what is said. Her blush is her side of that gap. Your calmness is yours. The longer that gap stretches without breaking, the stronger the pull becomes. If you hold steady, she begins to wonder. She starts to replay it in her head later. She starts to test again, to linger again, to give you more cracks in her armor because you've proven that her vulnerability is safe with you. Now let's talk about the mistake of overinvestment, because this is where men sabotage themselves. A woman's blush is intoxicating. It feels like winning. And that sense of victory makes men give away too much. Suddenly, they're showering her with attention, texting more, orbiting her with eagerness. They forget that one blush is not a guarantee of lasting attraction. It's just the opening of a door. If you rush through it, you look reckless. If you stand calmly at the threshold, she keeps opening it wider. The antidote to overinvestment is indifference, but not the cold, dismissive kind. It's warm indifference. It's the kind that says, I see you. I felt that moment, but I'm not undone by it. I'm still centered in myself. That's the posture of a man she wants to know more about. That's the posture that makes her attraction grow in secret places she doesn't even admit to herself yet. And let me give you another scenario. A woman uses her blush as a weapon, not just a slip. Some women know the effect it has. They linger with their eyes. They let the blush show deliberately. Then they withdraw their attention as a way to hook you deeper. If you're inexperienced, you fall for it. You chase harder, thinking you're closing in, when in reality she's playing you. The way you break this trap is the same. You never chase the blush. You let her give it. You let her retreat. But you don't run after her. Your indifference forces her to realize that her usual tricks don't work on you. And that forces her to come closer in sincerity instead of just manipulation. The battlefield of modern dating isn't in words. It's in these micro moments where attraction hides beneath denial. And the men who master those micro moments control the pace, the intensity, and the outcome. The man who can see her blush, feel the pull, and still remain grounded, he is the man she remembers when she's alone at night. Have you ever fallen into the trap of chasing too hard after her blush? Have you ever been played by a woman who used her signals to reel you in and then withdrew? Or have you mastered the art of sitting in silence while she crumbles under her own curiosity? Share your experiences below. I want to hear your battlefield stories. There's a hidden cost to misunderstanding these moments, and it's one most men don't even realize they've been paying. Every time you mishandle a woman's blush, you're not just losing that single opportunity, you're training her to see you as ordinary, and once you're ordinary in her eyes, you will never be extraordinary again. Because the men she remembers, the men she replays in her mind, are the ones who held the silence, the ones who didn't break under the weight of her unspoken interest. Those men live rent-free in her thoughts long after the moment ends. Think of it this way: women crave emotional polarity. They want to feel drawn toward a man, and at the same time wonder if they're the one chasing him. That tension is addictive. A blush is the spark. If you stay calm, you let that spark turn into fire. If you rush in, you blow it out. And here's the bitter truth: most men never even know they extinguish something. They tell themselves she just wasn't interested. But in reality, she was. She tested him. He failed. And she moved on without ever explaining. You've probably experienced this. You felt like things were going well. The looks were there. The little signals were there. And then suddenly she cooled off. She grew distant, unresponsive, busy. You wondered what happened. What happened is simple. You handled her subtle interest clumsily. You broke the tension instead of holding it. You collapsed into overinvestment instead of restraint. And the moment you did, her instinct told her, he's like the rest. He can't handle me. That's how fast the game can end. But here's where the shift happens once you see the game for what it is. You stop being desperate for clarity. You stop trying to force her to admit what she feels. You begin to relish the silence, because you understand that silence is where she exposes herself most. A woman doesn't confess attraction with words at first. She confesses it with her body, against her will. Her eyes linger, her face flushes, her breath hitches. These are not accidents. These are confessions written in biology. And your job isn't to drag them into the open. It's to let them hang in the air until she can't resist deepening them. Here's the practical battlefield tactic: never chase the moment, but never shrink from it either. When her eyes linger, give her yours. When her blush rises, let it. Don't smirk, don't tease, don't validate. Just let her sit in her own exposure while you remain unmoved. Then, at the right time, hours later, days later, you escalate in a way that feels inevitable. Because by then, she's already invested. By then, she's already been replaying the way you didn't break when she did. And that contrast between her vulnerability and your composure is what cements attraction. I'll give you a real example. A man I once coached told me about a woman he met at a conference. They locked eyes across the room, and he noticed her cheeks flush when he held her gaze. Instead of walking over immediately, he stayed in his conversation, calm, grounded, but with the faintest smile that told her he had noticed. An hour later, when the timing was right, he approached casually, not as if chasing her, but as if they'd already been in dialogue all along. By that point, she was the one eager to engage, because the memory of her own blush had been haunting her the entire time. That's the power of restraint. That's the power of waiting. Now, let's talk about the darker side. Women also test with blushing on purpose. Some know how powerful it is to let themselves appear vulnerable. They'll lock eyes, they'll let their skin flush, and then they'll use that as bait only to withdraw later, leaving you confused and chasing. You need to distinguish between authentic blush and strategic blush. The authentic one is involuntary, sudden, hard for her to mask. The strategic one often comes with a smirk, with rehearsed timing, with too much performance. The way you handle both is the same. You don't chase either. You let her signals come and go without them dictating your behavior. And by doing so, you filter out the manipulators because they'll get frustrated when you don't bite. The ultimate lesson here is this: attraction is not about doing more, it's about doing less. It's about being the man who doesn't flinch, doesn't grasp, doesn't demand. The man who is comfortable letting her reveal herself piece by piece without rushing to collect the prize, because she is the one who needs to collapse under her own tension, not you. And when she finally does, it feels to her like her decision, her pursuit, her surrender. That's why she respects you. That's why she stays. So ask yourself now, have you been the man who collapses the tension too soon? Or the man who holds it until she can't? Do you crave certainty so much that you ruin the silence? Or do you let the silence work for you? And most importantly, what would change in your life if you mastered this one discipline to stay still when everything in you wants to react? At some point, you have to see the bigger picture that the blush was never about her face turning red. It was about you. It was about what she felt when her defenses slipped. Because here's the truth. Most men avoid. Women don't blush. For men they don't respect. They don't linger their eyes on men they feel nothing for. They don't risk exposure unless something inside them is stirred. And if you've ever been the man who triggered that involuntary flush, you already know you had power in that moment. What you did with it defined whether it grew or died. The mistake is thinking that her signals mean she has chosen you. They don't. They mean she has opened the door just enough to test whether you can walk through without stumbling. Most men stumble. They trip over their eagerness, their nerves, their hunger. They either push too fast or pull away too weak. And the moment collapses. What separates you is not that you get the signal, it's how you carry it. Do you make it about her, or do you keep it about yourself? The highest form of attraction is when she realizes you don't need her to validate you. You don't need her to confirm her interest. You are steady whether her cheeks flush or not. And paradoxically, that's what makes her crave your presence even more. Because every other man gets intoxicated by her reactions, you, however, remain grounded. You can see her, you can enjoy the moment, but you don't lose yourself in it. That is the essence of masculine power, your ability to stay rooted while everything around you trembles. Imagine this scenario. She lingers again, her eyes softening, her lips pressing together, her blush betraying her interest. You feel it in your gut, but instead of reacting, instead of breaking the silence, you let her sit in it. You let her feel what it's like to reveal herself without you rushing in. Hours later, maybe days later, she's still thinking about it. Not because you did something dramatic, but because you didn't. Because you were the one man who didn't flinch, who didn't laugh nervously, who didn't chase. And when she finally leans toward you, when she finally makes her move, it won't feel like you won her. It will feel like she surrendered to herself. That's the shift you must make from chasing proof to embodying presence, from needing clarity to thriving in uncertainty, from overreacting to holding steady. Women live in emotional storms. They test men to see who can withstand them. The blush is one of those storms in miniature, sudden, vulnerable, intense. If you can stay calm through it, you've already passed a test most men fail. And once she knows you can hold that tension, she begins to wonder what else you can hold. Her secrets, her storms, her heart. But don't confuse this with indifference. Indifference without warmth is cold, and coldness repels. What you need is calmness laced with awareness. A subtle smile that says, "I saw that," without pressing further. A steady presence that makes her feel both safe and exposed at the same time. That is the razor's edge of attraction where she feels she is giving more than she planned. Yet she wants to give more still. In the end, it's not about mastering her blush. It's about mastering yourself. Her blush only reflects what your presence pulls out of her. And if your presence is weak, needy, unsteady, she will never blush for you again. But if your presence is grounded, composed, centered in your own worth, her body will betray her again and again, no matter how hard she tries to hide it. That's not manipulation, that's polarity, that's the truth of attraction that modern men forget. So let this settle in. She didn't blush because you were clever. She didn't blush because you had the right line. She blushed because, in that fleeting second, she felt something she couldn't control. Your job is not to ruin it. Your job is to hold it, to let it grow in silence until it becomes undeniable. Because the man who can hold a woman's involuntary vulnerability without collapsing into need, he's the man she will never forget. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.